Morning, welcome to Breakfast with Dan Walker here in Salford and Naga in Westminster this morning.
Good morning. Our headlines today. Boris Johnson's Brexit agreement is back in Parliament as the government tries again to get MPs to vote on it. Ministers say they'll push ahead with plans to leave by October the 31st, despite the Prime Minister being forced to ask the EU for an extension at the weekend.
Good morning. The pound slips after the weekend's vote as business weighs up whether a no-deal exit is still possible. I'm live in the City of London to take in the view.
In other news this morning, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex speak about struggling in the spotlight. Prince Harry says he and his brother have good days and bad days amid reports of a rift.
Part of this role and part of this job and this family being under the pressure that it's under, inevitably, stuff happens. But look, we're brothers. We'll always be brothers. We're certainly on different paths at the moment, but I will always be.
Good morning. The tears flow for Andy Murray as he wins his first singles title since career-saving hip surgery.
And Mike gets to keep dancing. We'll catch up with him after a hip-thrusting samba saw him survive the Strictly Dance Off.
Good morning. It's a chilly start to the day today. There's even some frost across parts of Scotland, but we'll see sunny spells, areas of cloud and some patchy rain across the southeastern quarter. I'll have more in 15 minutes.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us on Breakfast, Monday, October the 21st. Our top story. The government will push again today for MPs to vote on Boris Johnson's Brexit deal. It comes after a bruising weekend for the Prime Minister, in which he was forced to ask the EU for an extension to his planned leaving date of October the 31st. Let's take a quick look at what's in store. Now, ministers will try for another meaningful vote this afternoon. That's where MPs can indicate whether or not they support the Prime Minister's deal in principle. Now, whether that vote goes ahead is a decision for the Speaker, John Bercow. Most Westminster watchers think he'll probably refuse. Now, the government will also bring forward legislation to implement its EU withdrawal agreement bill. That would begin the legal process of the UK leaving the EU. Meanwhile, the Court of Session in Edinburgh, Scotland's Supreme Civil Court, is going to sit today to consider whether Mr Johnson acted unlawfully by failing to sign his letter to the EU, which asked for an extension to the Brexit deadline. We can talk now to our political correspondent, Jessica Parker. Jessica, what a weekend! What a start to the week. OK, so shall we start with the vote?
Yep.
And whether or not it's likely to go ahead? Because, of course, this is what we were expecting on so-called Super Saturday.
Yeah, so what happened on Saturday was, because of that let-win amendment, the government decided that they thought what had been supposed to be a meaningful vote was rendered meaningless. It looks like they're going to have another go today. But as you were saying, the Speaker, John Bercow, has to give permission for this to go ahead. The feeling seems to be that maybe he won't. Why? Well, perhaps he'll judge, as he did remember back with Theresa May, that it's too similar to what the government already tried to do on Saturday. So we'll have to see whether the Speaker rules in favour of the government or rules against the government. That'll probably happen around 3:30 this afternoon.
There is an argument that the vote didn't happen, so how could it be similar?
Well, the vote did happen. This is a lot of confusion. So the amendment went through. The government were terribly annoyed. They didn't then move the vote to a division, but it did actually get the nod through, but it didn't count as a meaningful vote, if you like. And I think one of the things the government is trying to do is get a bit of impetus as they try and then bring forward the legislation and get that legislation through very quickly.
Well, this is the next stage, isn't it? We've got 10 days to October the 31st. Boris Johnson has been adamant that the UK will leave the EU by that date.
Yeah.
But there is so much to discuss with this withdrawal bill ahead of that.
Absolutely, and I think MPs are going to want to look at this legislation very closely. So, first reading today, that's just a fairly standard procedure. Second reading tomorrow, where you'll get a debate, possibly a vote as well. But I think the concern for the government is all the amendments that MPs will try and chuck at this bill, whether that is for another referendum, whether that's for a customs union, whether that's to try and ensure that there's not a no-deal scenario at the end of the transition period. This legislation has got an awful lot of hurdles to get over, and as well we would probably expect the government to bring forward what's called a programme motion, where they try and control the timing of the passage of the bill, but it's quite possible MPs could vote that down as well.
OK, I think we have a lot to pick through this morning. Thanks very much, Jessica. That's the theme, I think, this morning. We're going to be trying to explain to you exactly what is happening today and throughout the coming week. Let's go back to Dan in the studio. Lots more news. Dan, we're going to be sifting through all the detail as much as we can. Morning to you.
Yeah, morning.